What is up, everyone? And welcome back to Esports and Gaming Tonight with AJ Stryker. I have with me a very special guest. I have Mr. Isaac Davenport. He is the creator of Michael Maverick. He is one of in many eFeds, of one of which is GWW. He's also in TCW and his own Fed, which we will be speaking of, WWWN. So how are you doing tonight, Mr. Davenport?
I'm doing well. I'm glad to be a part of this and get out here in the community and kind of contribute to another content creator's product. I'm excited because that's what this is all about, reaching out cross-platform and learning a little bit about who makes up this community.
Indeed. And I think it's important for us to also understand that, sometimes you can get wrapped up in your call, that it can kind of take over. Some people might take it a little bit more seriously than others. So I think it's important for you to get to know the people that are behind the cause so that you probably will be a little bit less likely to get so upset next time,
Yeah.
But listen, give us a little information about you as a person, not the in character, just you as a man. So let us know some interesting facts about yourself.
Well, I grew up in Eastern North Carolina, a small little town, hole in the wall called Roper, North Carolina. You can't find it on a map. And I teach middle grades agricultural education, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Okay. And I am a lifelong wrestling fan. And I also have a fiance, Juliana, and we are on two separate coasts. She's in Vegas, I'm here, but that's just how it is right now with the way the pandemic has been. It's been crazy because that's where her job is. My job is here, so it's been frustrating. But it's the thing of it is that that's really kind of it. I over time in the past, I have been the co-promoter of my own wrestling fed, Worldwide Wrestling Network, WWWN, and we're actually going to be trying to do a relaunch on 2K22 if the game is actually worth playing. Fingers crossed. We had our hopes up with 2K20, and that just went, phew.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. But kudos to everybody in the 2K community and the esports 2K community, especially, who picked up the bag, the folks who stuck around, who kept 2K19 afloat, and have been making content to keep people involved in something that could have very easily just been disappeared on that cycle. There a lot of people stepped up and just said, we know 2K20 is unusable, we're gonna stay with what we've got and just hope they keep the servers up and at least 2K did that much to keep the servers up, so that people could keep getting content of what's being produced,
which is important.
It is. And we recorded, not to make this all about all the side projects that I've got, because I don't want to shamelessly plug everything that we do. But I also do a podcast, Project WWWN. And we've recorded 3 episodes today, and 2 of which where we were doing interviewing two Fed owners. And basically a lot of the communication that we were talking about as we got deeper into the conversations we were having is how a little bit disrespected the creator community is when it comes to developers understanding the role that we play in the longevity of these games. And when I talk about creators, I'm not just talking about original call creations like you and I do. I am talking about those who update arenas, those who update in-game wrestlers' attires. And I'm talking about like within 24 to 48 hours, they've got some guy's one specific pay-per-view attire done and ready. And it's ready for people who want to download, who use the game in that way. People who create detailed reimaginings of classic pay-per-view arenas and classic wrestlers. This is what keeps the game working all year, even though everybody who purchases these games know, for the most part, they're buying something that's a broken mess. Like we know from jump that unless there's major revisions, that the game is going to have bugs. It's going to have things that hadn't been patched and fixed, that have been complaints for years. And we just hope that the effort that other people post-launch put into it is going to keep the game being fun. And that's what makes this whole creative community work. We rely on each other to keep the game interesting.
Indeed. You have to. Just like GTA, right?
Yes.
GTA 5 has been out forever. But you know why people still play it? Besides the servers being up, is because you make an investment. You make an investment in those characters, and that's a lot of time. So when you're creating your cause and things like that, it does take time for you to literally watch your player in action, to see what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, and try to capitalize on it. You know, whether you're going to have a body set, a head set, whatever you want to specialize in. It takes time to figure that out and figure out. So kudos to all of those aficionados that really dive deep into this.
Yes.
Because you don't have to, but you choose to, and with that, you show the creative possibilities of what could happen. Like even Natalia, she takes her car and she'll just go and put herself in different games and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, that's so cool. Never thought that you could do anything like that.
No. And she is Natalia is someone that I've only recently been connected with through GWW, but she is amazingly creative, and also is just I don't know how she deals with a lot of the texturing that she does. If I could figure that out, it would help me tremendously with some of the female characters that I try to develop for my promotion, because it is it's the detailing on it is just amazing that she does. And some of the other creators out there that specialize in female cause, they do work that I can't even get my brain wrapped around, with body morphing and warping on bodysuits and placement of logos that just I'm decent. Okay, I'm decent with logo creation and placement and things like that. But I will 100% admit that there are people who are 100 times better than me at doing that kind of work. And they deserve major props for learning how to do that in such a limited system. Because where I learned to do my just minor amount of graphic design, I'm all self-taught. The minor amount that I do, I learned from a game called Freedom Force. I don't know if anybody in your community and the ePay community is going to be familiar with Freedom Force. But Freedom Force was a superhero RPG, and it was developed by Irrational Games. And Irrational Games weirdly was bought by 2K Studios years later. Okay, so there's this weird connection and it's odd. But basically, when Freedom Force was ending its life cycle, the developers at Irrational basically said, hey, does the community want to have the tools that we use to develop this game to customize it further? And basically the community was like, yeah.
Right.
And what happened was a community sprung up around this game that changed it from this fairly mediocre superhero game where it wasn't licensed, it was all these made up characters. But what happened is by the time the second game came through, Freedom Force Rise of the Third Reich, Freedom Force versus the Third Reich, the modding community had created textures and models and animations and keyframes for basically any licensed character you could think of. Okay, so they had textures and keyframes and body meshes for Spider-Man, for Batman, for Superman. So you could import this model into this other game engine and build your own version of Superman or Spider-Man. And where I learned my graphic design and kind of text wrapping concepts was building texture maps and designs for that game when I was in college. Mm-hmm. Because before I was really heavy into the call community, I was doing that with superhero RPG, because to me, they're two sides of the same coin. Wrestling is basically real life superheroes. It's the closest thing we get to superheroes in real life, because it's the same morality play. It's good guys versus bad guys. It's trying to attain a goal, or it's about personal slights that have happened, or it's about concepts of different forms of good and evil coming into conflict with each other. And that is comic books, that is movies, that is also professional wrestling. And so the same two ideas draw me to both of those art forms. And that is kind of how I approach my my thought process of design. It's how does this wrap and fit on the model of this character, and to make it look like we need it to look in game.
Okay, I understand. Tell me, what would be the difference between your EFED and all the rest of them that you join? Why would someone want to join WWWN?
Well, I would think that we are getting ready to test out a very unique release and method, and a very unique type of character immersion. We are going to be doing instead of doing a weekly live show, we are going to go live bi-weekly. We're going to basically have one episode every other week. And what we're going to be doing with that is we're basically going to do 14 episodes leading up to a big event that's basically going to be a season finale for those 14 episodes. And the goal that we're going to be trying to do with that fed is, with our roster, we want to keep our numbers for each series to about 20 or 30 folks, okay? And we want to kind of drop them into our Worldwide Wrestling Network universe. So we're going to have, it's one of the reasons I say that Michael Maverick is part of the WWE, and he's not going to be booked in championship matches, but the characters, the original characters of the Worldwide Wrestling Network are going to be basically working with what we're calling our featured characters. Our featured characters are our roster members, because those are who we're building our content around, people who are joining our Fed. And so those featured characters are the ones that are going to be getting the pushes, getting the storylines, getting the championship opportunities, but they will be establishing themselves against our original Worldwide Wrestling Network characters. And so once those new folks, those featured characters really get established, that is where the wheels are going to start turning. And our biggest pitch for why people should kind of join us on this adventure is we are already telling people what the path to our first series is. And it's our pay-per-view that we're calling Succession. And Succession is a hybrid pay-per-view that is basically a combination of WWF's classic Survivor Series. Okay, so it's got the first part is going to be the 5-on-5 or 4-on-4, depending on what the game's going to allow for 2K20. We're thinking 4-on-4. And then whoever are the sole survivors, whoever are the survivors of the Succession series, they are automatically put and bracketed into a tournament for what we're calling the Worldwide Wrestling Network Heritage title. The Heritage title is basically our Money in the Bank concept. Whomever gets the Heritage title, the inaugural championship, they have the right to call their shot for any title that that their character basically meets the criteria for. So if they want to go for the world heavyweight title, they can call that shot. If they're under 215 pounds, they can go for the world junior heavyweight title. If they want to bring new life to our hardcore division, they can go for the brass knuckles title. If they want to be the face of on-demand media, they can go for our on-demand title, and so on and so forth. Whatever title they qualify for, they can put that heritage title up for grabs and basically change that out, declare themselves number one contender, and then automatically we figure out, okay, we're going to do a fatal four-way for that heritage title. So that passes along so that we're constantly having new contenders to be able to challenge for whatever title. It gives us a fresh take on storytelling constantly. The other thing that we're going to be is we're going to be very open about what is our path. Like every series, we're going to be, this is the main story. And the main story is meant to get everybody on the roster, and people are going to be able to be a part of the main story, because all of our big season finales are basically big gimmick story things that multiple people can be involved in. Now, that's not to say that's the only thing that's going on. We're going to have our typical championship titles with those feuds that are going on. We're going to have our typical, hey, I want to work with this character, let's start a feud type thing and do that as well. But what we want to do is basically, hey, this is the story that we're telling. Come and be a part of this story. And the other thing about it is that ultimately this is all leading to our yearly series finale of Battle Bowl, where folks who want to come back for our big Battle Bowl series, it's anybody's ball game, because that becomes a basically a lethal lottery. So a lethal lottery is where you mix up everybody. Everybody who wants to be involved in the title scene for our Royal Rumble, first they have to qualify by going through the lethal lottery. That means they're partnered randomly with somebody. They have to survive that level, then they have to survive the 20-man battle royal for the #1 contendership at Battle Bowl. So everything that we do is meant to add drama, to add steps, and to give people the most opportunity to get that gold recognition if that's what they think they need, but also to give them storytelling, because this is the main plot. Draw your own thread to it. Help us make this better.
Sounds good. That was actually different from what the other leagues are doing, that you're involved in, like GWW and TCW and things like that. So, very interesting concept.
We know it's experimental. We know it's different. We know that it is a challenge to get people on board. But honestly, we think that it's going to make good content, right, because that's the plan. If we can get people who really want to say, this is unique, this is different, let's see how this works, and they give us a couple of series to get it moving, we really think that this could be something that could be not just something that's good content for us, but we want to be able to work with other feds. We want to have those surprise crossovers when we do one night only events, when we do one-off things and work with people, so we can bring some surprise and bring some drama and bring a sense of fun and interconnectivity that does not seem to exist in the greater world of CAW, beyond a few feds that work together in networks and promotional support. We want to, especially with 2K22, really opening the floodgates, breaking down the hardware barrier of PC and PlayStation and Xbox. We want to kind of, hopefully, people will be willing to drop some of those promotional barriers as well and let for a little bit of interleague play. Now, everybody has their absolute right to be protective of their property and their intellectual content that they put out there. But I think that if we can show that we can work together as a community, then we would have more of a leg to stand on when we go to developers, even if it's not 2K, taking 2K out of the equation. When Virtual Basement comes and starts asking, hey, what do CAW creators need to make good characters in our release? When Jackdaw comes around and is showing off what he is doing for his Pro Wrestling Ultra Violence game, that he's doing, developing, programming, one-man team by himself, independently. Okay, that's why it's taking so long, but it's showing great progress. When he comes to, okay, I'm thinking about a creation suite. What do we need? If we can show that we can work together and we can organize and communicate with each other, we can more easily communicate the needs of the community for creation long term. And that is something that is really, 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 really lost. Dre 41 tried to give creators a chance movement a few years ago. He got slapped around for it. And people saying that he was trying to make it about him. No, he wasn't. I was working with Dre at that time. Dre was really trying to use his platform to give us a platform. And it was frustrating when he was not given, a guy who has put in a lot of time in community creations, one of the most respected talent out there, and just everybody wants to think that he's doing this selfishly, when really he's just trying in his own way to platform everybody and say, y'all, we're not getting what we need. We need people to speak up and say what we need, and if nobody else is going to do it, I'm going to do it.
That's right. That's right. And that's the way it should be, and when you're investing your time, whether it's money, your time, you want it to be the way you need it to be in order to
exactly. So
that's important. That's important. But moving on just a little bit, tell us about your character that you created.
Michael Maverick, the way that I describe him is that in another time, in another place, he would have been that Old West Marshal. He would have been the guy that was going in to kind of clean up the town, that would earn the trust of the team. Another way that I would describe him as a wrestling Andy Griffith. Okay, that's kind of how that's how I view him. He is a guy who has, as my grandmother would say, he was raised right. He's respectful. He believes in hard work. He believes in earning his shot. He believes in a certain degree of toughness, but at the same time, he believes that there needs to be justice. There needs to be fairness in that. Mm-hmm. And he can be, I usually portray him as a babyface. I usually portray, if he is a heel, it's usually he is a heel, but it is a specific story. Like there's a story that's being told to kind of look at this aspect of his character, that there is a darker side to how he might view the world. And ultimately it leads to a story about what brings him out of that mindset.
Gotcha.
And he is just meant to be, I hate to say white meat babyface, but that's what he is. He's the white meat babyface of my league. And I've done different things with him in different feds, but in TCW and GGW, he is basically meant to be the tough guy who is like a Timex. He takes a beating. If he wins, he wins. If he loses, he loses. Ultimately, it's going to come down to how he fought the fight. Did he go down swinging, or did he get bum rushed? And usually I try to build him as the guy that I think there was a match in TCW a few months ago when Jackson Jordan came back. I was lucky enough to be put into a title match, and I was going up against one of Jason Morte Jr.'s characters, and I can't remember if it was Dominic Morte or another character of his, but no, it was his JMJ character. And we put on a 20-minute match. Like, we beat the crap out of each other for a solid 20 minutes in the game. And that is, depending on the sliders that a Fed owner uses, that is a substantial amount of time for just two characters with an AI versus AI setting to fight. Like, and just, I think I asked JMJ after the match, how many finishers did you hit Maverick with? He said, I think I hit you with 4. I kicked out of 4 finishers and won the match. Now, I don't do that every time.
Right.
But when it is done, it's like, holy crap. How did I do that? And why can't he do that too consistently? But it's, the idea is that I take a lot of influence as far as when I build him from 3 of my favorite wrestlers of all time, Dusty Rhodes, Mike Awesome, and Diamond Dallas Page. And DDP and Dusty Rhodes were both known as charismatic, tough as nails, uh, silver spoon talking, just sell a ketchup popsicle to a woman in white gloves type of talker. And then I wanted to add that level of aggressiveness that Mike Awesome would bring to his matches, that level of violence and ability that Dusty and Paige, for different reasons, just didn't have. It's not that they weren't capable workers. They were both capable workers. It's just that their style isn't really the fighting style that Maverick has. Maverick mostly kind of works like Booker T meets Mike Awesome meets Scott Steiner, which is weird combination, I know, but that's how I've always built him, as a guy he's an all-arounder. He can do a little bit of everything. And that's how I build the moveset. That his whole thing is that if I don't get you with my kick, I'm going to get you with the cutter that I've perfected. If I don't get you with the cutter, I'm going to get you with my double under power bomb. If I don't get you with my double power bomb, I'm going to drop you on my head with a power driver. If that doesn't work, I'll just go to the top rope and I'll jump on you. And while he doesn't do all of those things perfectly, he is going to do and put himself in the position to try to win in any way that he can.
Right. Okay. And sounds like you took the time out to know exactly what you wanted and what his ability should be. So hey,
yes,
you've been doing really good, man. So before I let you go, because this has been very interesting, is there anything else that you would want to say to individuals that are looking to become a part of an E-Federation? What should they be looking at? What should they be looking out for? What should they consider? What is your advice on that?
Rule number one before you go into any Fed is you need to make sure that you're watching the content. This is one of the reasons that I like Jinx's 10 hours rule for GWW, because it gives you an opportunity to watch the content, to get invested in the characters, and also to get to know the community who's in the chat. And if you are coming into multiple streams and getting to know the personalities of the people, it makes it a heck of a lot easier for people to say, hey, I recognize you from chat. Let's try this. Okay. And you make your debut, and you might already have a story working with somebody if you've kind of communicated this idea with the booker and with that person that reached out to you. I think really the main thing is beyond that is you have to be clear in your communication with everybody. You can't leave things up to assumption. You have to be direct and clear that this is my vision. This is what I want to try to do. How does this interrelate to your thoughts on how you think I should be used, especially when you're communicating with bookers, especially when you're communicating with show owners. And the other thing is just don't take wins and losses so seriously. You're gonna win, you're gonna lose. If you're new, you're definitely gonna lose because you might not know the system and how the Fed owner is using their sliders. You're gonna have to take the time to learn that. Some Fed owners are 100% open. They're going to post their sliders and say, this is what we do. Test it out, figure it out. Some keep those closer to the vest. That's their right. That's their prerogative. And so that means that you have to take the time and figure out what's going to work for your character against this big old roster of diverse personalities and characters. And so it all circles back to knowing that community. It all circles back to knowing that Fed, which goes back to rule number one. watching the product, knowing what you're going to get yourself into. And I think that if I had to say any other thing is just when you're starting out, don't spread yourself out too thin. Get yourself involved in one place and build yourself up. And then see where other people are working. Get some recommendations from people, because usually people aren't going to steer you to somewhere where they don't think your character's not going to fit. Especially if you've followed rule number 1 and put in your time in that federation and learn that community. You're going to gain that trust of that community, and they're going to be respectful and say, hey, there are some slots opening up at this fed that I'm a part of. We think you'd be a good fit. Why don't you communicate with so-and-so and find out what you need to do to be a part of the roster? And honestly, that's really the main thing that I can give for anybody. It comes down to knowing the communication and the knowing the community and communication. Mm-hmm. And I think I've only been involved around in-call for about 5 years, and there are some issues sometimes with communication between roster members and bookers. I think that you may have seen some of this before, and it really just comes down to intention and communicating that intention, like what is needed and how a person wants to be used. And if communication is done appropriately, the compromise of the want of the performer, of the talent, and the intention of the booker can be met, because a happy median can be met. Because I'm getting a little bit of I want the bookers getting to tell the story that they need to tell, and then the wins and losses really don't matter because everybody's telling a good story. Mm-hmm. Now, for folks who are going to be more competitive, that is a harder thing to do, because they want those wins and those losses and to dominate, because they want to do the true EFED thing. And that is something that's a little alien to me, because I always came into this wanting to tell stories. I always wanted to come into this to be able to express a character or several characters in my case, to be able to say, hey, these are our extensions of my friends or my personality or concepts that I find interesting. And let's see how we can tell these stories in the world of wrestling. And honestly, I think that and just not a ramble, but one other thing that I think that would help a lot of new folks coming into wrestling is honestly learning just a little bit about pen and paper role-playing games. Just going and learning and educating yourself a little bit about how traditional RPGs work. Mm-hmm. Because fundamentally, what we're doing in EFED, especially with our wrestling EFEDs, is we are just doing a pen and paper role-playing game where we're letting a computer decide what the outcome of the dice rolls are. That's all we're doing. We're taking on a character, and our dice rolls are what is happening in the game. Okay. And so that's how I view this. Mm-hmm. And so if RPG and pen and paper is something that's alien kind of to you, I would kind of do a little bit of research about how things like Dungeons and Dragons or any other popular, it really doesn't matter what kind of pen and paper, but just do some kind of research on how those work. Because honestly, when you realize that you are putting on a character, stepping into a created world, you don't have control about exactly what's going to happen. That prepares you for what we do in digital wrestling. If you come into it with that mindset of, I'm a character, this is a fictional world, we don't have control of the outcomes any more than we have just what our stats, attributes, and abilities and our moveset is. That's all the control that we have. Everything else is literally a roll of the dice. And it's not even 50-50. We don't even know what it is because we don't know the game engine. We don't have all the specs on it. Okay? So all we can do is create the best character I have with attributes that complement it, with personality traits that complement the moveset, and hope that that triangle works.
Exactly.
To be successful. And if it's not, go back to the lab or communicate with people. Go to people like Luke Luger or Liam Mercer or MC or QC or anybody who might want to give you a heads up on, you're doing this wrong, or you're focusing too many moves here. You need to try this. Your finisher's too slow. And things like that. And I can't give all the advice because I build only for character. I'm not building to win. Okay, I will be 100% on that. Our whole focus with Worldwide Wrestling Network is building for character, and that's the advice that we're going to give. We have a whole system that we do that I won't get into, but the if wins and losses are something that's important to you, find somebody who wins and losses is equally important, and honestly, they're going to like the competition most of the time. Not all the time, but most of the time. They're going to want to say, give that advice to see if their advice works, because they're learning too. They're trying to see if what works on their character is something that will work for anything, because we're all learning the system every time, and that is the honest truth. Nobody knows everything about how this game works. Okay. There are some people who are better experts at movesets. There are some folks who are better experts at attributes. There are some folks who are better experts at personality traits, but everybody is just giving their opinion based on their experience, and we can all learn from each other to get the most out of all of our characters.
Phenomenal. I'm so glad that you found me, that you watched the show, previous shows and things like that, and you came on, because I think that you took the time out to explain things, even for me to get a better understanding of what the expectations are and how it works. Because sometimes you think that, maybe the person that's running the console can actually control who loses and who wins.
No, and they can. But what I mean by that is that if they are trying to tell a story, they can use like highlight reel and do production,
right?
But the thing of it is that most feds like GWW, Q or MC or Brandon are going to be, hey, we're doing this. We need this from you so we can do this. And it's not a surprise. Okay. Every other thing on the card, or 85% of it on the card, would be strict AI versus AI. But then there are things that a lot of people call what are protected stories. It's stories that they are trying to get over, they're trying to make last longer, or they're trying to build over time. And those are the things that would be typically done where there's an up level of production, or there is a clearly inserted cutscene, like what would happen tonight on GGW for T Monsters Tribute, Isabella Brooks versus Chloe Corvin. The end of that had Bebe Cash run down to the cage, climb up the cage, and get stuck on the top of the cage. Okay, and Chloe Corvin was down, and Isabella Brooks called for the cage door to be open, and she walked out. So that did three things. That let Isabella Brooks win a tribute match to her unfortunately passed away husband. Rest in peace, T Monster. It got Chloe Corvin in the main event, which helped build that character a little bit to establish her because she's been on a bit of a losing streak. And it continued the feud that was leading up to Holy Grail between Bebe Cash and Isabella Brooks. And so that is a protected storyline. The Brooks and the Bebe Cash story is something that they are trying to continue to get through to Holy Grail if they can. I know that they're trying to, but there's a lot of time between then and now, and they're a little off schedule because of things that have been happening in real life with with everybody involved in that. Right. But those are really the only times where AI versus AI doesn't happen in GWW. It's where there is a story that they're trying to tell specifically, and then the rest of the time it's really all up to the stats, personality, and moveset. And different feds do different things, and that's why people need to watch the product. Yeah, because there are feds that do amazing things, but it's all done highlight reel, where they're recording basically 45-second clips at a time and putting it together, and they release once a month because they're literally putting 45-second clips and putting it together. There are feds that do all simulation, where they do that one of two ways, where it is pre-recorded matches where the opponents meet online. They do a real simulated fight. There's a real winner and a loser, and they send the outcome, the recorded outcome, to the fed to place on the card. Then there are the old school way of simulation, where the person has to be in chat, on stream, online in the game, ready for their match, and then they pitch it over to that match. And I mean, that's old school simulation. So knowing the product and knowing how things are done is vital to getting involved into the different aspects of this community.
Beautiful. Beautifully stated. It was a pleasure to meet you, Isaac.
Absolutely.
Luck in your future endeavors, and I'll be looking forward. I'll be seeing you out there. You know, we're in
absolutely
leagues together, so I'll be.
We are.
Look, check this out. This is what happened when you make a difference. Somebody actually made my character,
and it's an actually pretty decent likeness, especially with. I think that is actually hand sculpted or at least sculpted hair. I don't think that is. It doesn't look like something that's off of another doll, another figure. That is all sculpty. I mean, that is amazing. And the detailing really gets your AJ character put together as well. It really does.
I thought it was dope. So joining leagues like this, even just being involved in esports, you never know who you can meet. You never know who you're talking to, So it's good to get out there, network, get to know people, watch shows like this, watch Isaac's podcast, watch all kind of content creations, because A, we take a lot of time to do this kind of stuff and a lot of effort. And B, it is a great way for you to get to know who you're getting involved with, especially when I have eFed owners on like yourself. You get a chance to actually talk to the creators, so you know clearly what they're about. you can see them, and you have that, like, I know you kind of feel.
Right. I
think that's important. So
it is.
Come on anytime you want. You got some major announcements that you want to make, for your league and everything, please, I'll be happy to have you back on. All right,
absolutely. Maybe next time we can schedule it and get my co-host on as well. Yes. And we'll be able to talk a little bit more in depth about what we do on the podcast.
Absolutely.
That would be amazing. Thank you for this time, and I really appreciate you and the effort that you're putting forth in trying to help us get to know each other a little bit better in this community, because as much as what I think I'm doing on Project WWM with the podcast is helping people understand the character, you are doing this whole other 180. We're kind of taking off the mask a little bit, letting people know the differences between the characters we play and the humans we are in real life. Mm-hmm. And I agree with you that 100% it is a needed thing, so that maybe people will just have fun with this and not take it so freaking seriously. Because honestly, I'm gonna get real close to the camera here to make sure that people understand it's a game. It's a game. And if you don't realize that, maybe you should go outside and touch some grass a little bit, kick some rocks around, play baseball. It's a game.
Let them know, because sometimes you got people that just get way too invested in it, and I'm like, listen, this is my escape. I'm here to have fun, enjoy my time, watch a few matches, hopefully win them, and then go about my business. I'm not here to just be like, oh my gosh, I'm spending 5 hours talking about this, then just like making this my life for real. Like, no.
Yeah, it's not. That's not what it is.
You're not out here wrestling for real. You're not dressing up in these outfits for real.
We spend enough time developing the content, especially if you're a creator like you are. I mean, I've seen the detail in your AJ Striker character. Okay, I've seen the detail in it. And so I know that there's at least 3 hours, at least, if not more, in the character. Okay. And so because I create with the Fed, because we're trying to create a layered world of enhancement talent, mid cards, main eventers, we know that we spend at least 3 hours on our least developed character. Okay. That's not including our layered characters that we want people to call out and have matches with, that will have really good matches with, not our lower tier characters that you're rolling through to establish yourself with. So I have a kind of, I can tell a little bit about how much time people are putting in based on look and moveset and attributes. And I can tell by tattoo design work, texturing, and just the work that you're putting into the whole package and presentation of your character, that the time is in. We spent so much time just developing these little pieces of content. We're not out here to get pissy about a win or a loss. We're here to have fun and to see the little pieces of our creations, these little aspects of ourselves in different formats and different situations, and to have fun with it and react to it for just a little while, to step outside of our reality for a minute.
Exactly. Great conversation.
Absolutely.
And I can't wait to have it again with you.
All right. I'll be happy to be back anytime. Thank you for taking your time, and I hope that this is something that people like and appreciate. And you can find me on at let's see, I want to make sure I get my handles right.
Yes.
So first, for Worldwide Wrestling Network, you can get to us at WWWN Online. That's our Twitter handle. That is our main thing of communication. But if you want to just get up with me on Twitter, that would be my main way of getting up with myself personally. My @ there is failed_hero85. That is my personal @ and then also, if you're interested in just the podcast, if you want to know more about everything that's going on with what we're doing with the podcast and the return of the Worldwide Wrestling Network Live, you can actually go to our link tree, which is a willow, and that willow is wlo.link/@project www.wn. That is 3 W's and an N. And that has the podcast. It has where our Twitch stream will be. It has guest forms for being on our Building Legends segments, which is our call creation segment where we talk about call character development. It has our form for Dynasties in Progress, which is for our folks who are promotion owners, and where we talk about what makes promotions unique and how feds get run and have these kind of conversations. And it also has a couple of things like our attribute calculator to help new folks who don't know what they're doing with attributes to kind of get a leg up and at least a start on the kind of attributes that they would like to have in game, so that they can build around that and figure out from this base where they need to go from, or if what they're doing is going to work or not. And then the other thing that we also use, another tool, is actually Hyperballer23 and DC All-Americans long-term 2K attribute project, which is a whole conversation in and of itself, which if you do not know about that as someone who is doing anything in esports, that's something you need to look into, and I'll be happy to talk to you about that off recording on that, because that is an amazing project that they do for NBA 2K, WWE 2K, to try to make the sim game actually sim realistically. It's an amazing project.
Okay, looking forward to hearing more about that. Maybe I should have you back on to be able to explain more in detail about that, so we can all have.
Well, what I'd really like is if somebody could actually get a hold of Hyperballer23 and DC All American, so that they could talk about it, because they can have more information about it, but they don't seem to be returning my DMs. So.
Well, maybe you should use this show. Maybe you should use this show and be like, hey, I'm here. This is what we got going on. We would love to incorporate you in this. And so maybe we can make it work,
Yeah, hopefully, maybe in the future.
Indeed. But yeah, looking forward to seeing you again soon. I was going to say something, but I forgot.
There'll be other opportunities.
Indeed. Well, you have a good night, sir. And
you too.
See you in the ring. All right.
All right. Have a good night.
You too. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Bye-bye.